In the vast, uncharted expanse of the galaxy, an empire of ancient species stretched its tendrils across the stars, believing themselves to be the natural rulers of the universe. The Drachner, a reptilian species of unmatched intelligence, the Yithan, a race of ethereal energy beings, and the Vortai, a race of towering, armored giants, were the names whispered in the darkness of the cosmos. They believed themselves to be supreme, each ruling their domains with an iron fist. The humans, a young and relatively primitive species from a backwater planet called Earth, were of no consequence. Yet, as the ancient species pondered their dominion, they underestimated the greatest strength of all, the resilience of humanity. It began with the first contact, not as an alliance or an invitation for peaceful coexistence, but with a massive, galaxy-spanning assault. The humans were thrust into the galactic stage by sheer force, having unlocked the ability to travel beyond their world after decades of bitter struggle. Their first ship, the Pride of Soul, was a crude vessel compared to the refined warships of the more advanced species. Still, the humans' drive was unmatched, their relentless pursuit of survival and mastery of their environment their greatest asset. The Pride of Soul was just the beginning. At first, the humans struggled. They had no ancient weaponry, no mystic powers, and no centuries of galactic warfare experience. Their weapons were primitive compared to those of the seasoned civilizations, their ships nothing more than hastily constructed vessels in comparison to the sleek, battle-hardened warships of their adversaries. But what they lacked in technology, they made up for in tenacity. Humanity's first encounter with the Drachner was a disaster. The Drachner ambushed them as they attempted to venture deeper into the galaxy. Their reptilian warlords, long accustomed to the thrill of crushing lesser species, thought nothing of the small human crew. They did not realize that the humans, though outmatched in strength, would never back down. The battle was brutal, with the humans' ship sustaining massive damage. The Drachner expected them to flee in terror, as had so many before them. But the humans fought back with something the Drachner couldn't understand: grit. Against the overwhelming force of the Drachner fleet, the humans performed miracles. They repaired their ship in mid-flight, improvising and scavenging from the debris around them, turning parts of the broken hull into makeshift weapons. Human ingenuity, fueled by desperation, allowed them to evade certain death and mount a counteroffensive. It wasn't a victory, but it sent a powerful message to the Drachner: humanity would never be subjugated without a fight. The Yithan, meanwhile, observed from the shadows. They had watched the humans' progress, intrigued by their resourcefulness and sheer will. The Yithan had the ability to manipulate energy and matter, bending the laws of physics to their will. Their civilization had long believed that such physical limitations were beneath them. But the humans' refusal to yield to their enemies forced them to question their own complacency. To the Yithan, these humans were something entirely different, unpredictable, unyielding, and capable of evolving at a pace no one could match. The Vortai, ever the pragmatic warriors, saw the humans as a nuisance. Their towering, muscle-bound forms were perfect for combat, and their technology was both frightening and crude, but still capable of wreaking havoc. They issued a challenge, a battle on a neutral moon, with the Vortai assuming that their sheer size and strength would crush the humans in minutes. They didn't anticipate the cunning of the human strategy, nor the savagery that would be unleashed once the Vortai underestimated their foes. The battle ended with the humans wounded, but triumphant, taking down the seemingly indestructible Vortai with calculated precision. It was the beginning of something unprecedented. Humanity had no ancient weaponry, no secret powers. What they had was their ability to adapt, to learn, and to innovate under pressure. While other civilizations spent millennia refining their strengths, humanity grew stronger with every encounter. The galaxy was about to learn that the most dangerous thing in the universe was not the strongest, or the most ancient, it was the most resilient. The universe had just made its first mistake. And humanity was on the rise. The Drachner, having suffered an unexpected loss, found themselves both enraged and cautious. In their arrogance, they believed the humans to be a fluke, an anomaly that had escaped their grasp by sheer luck. But they quickly learned that underestimating humanity would be a fatal mistake. The humans, after their near defeat, emerged from the encounter with new knowledge and a burning desire for revenge. They began to modify their technology, reverse engineering Drachner technology they had scavenged from the battle, and using the harsh lessons of their first encounter to fuel their designs. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the Yithan grew restless. Their once unchallenged belief in their superiority was beginning to fray. Humanity had not only survived against the Drachner, but they had forced the reptilian species to rethink their approach. The Yithan, for all their power, could not ignore the rising tide of the human race. The more the humans encountered alien species, the more they adapted and innovated, turning weakness into strength and necessity into invention. While the Yithan were debating what to do about the humans, the Vortai saw a different opportunity. After their humiliating defeat at the hands of the humans, they realized that while humanity was a threat, they were also an opportunity. If they could align themselves with the humans, perhaps they could use the humans' raw potential to their advantage, and in doing so, dominate the galaxy together. A cold, calculating alliance began to form in the shadows of the galaxy, one that would soon be tested on the blood-soaked fields of war. It wasn't long before the first major conflict broke out. The Drachner, eager to reclaim their dominance, launched a full-scale invasion of the human colonies along the outer rim of the galaxy. This time, they would not be caught off guard. They had gathered a vast armada, ready to overwhelm the humans with their superior numbers and firepower. But the humans were no longer unprepared. They had learned from their mistakes. They had trained their soldiers, honed their fleets, and developed new technologies faster than the Drachner could keep up. The battle for the colony worlds was fierce, and the humans fought with the ferocity of animals defending their den. Every human soldier, from the lowliest grunt to the fleet admirals, understood what was at stake. It wasn't just survival anymore. It was about proving that the galaxy had underestimated them. The humans dug in, using their ingenuity and adaptability to turn the tides of war in ways that none of the ancient species could have foreseen. Humanity had a new weapon, the Nova Pulse, a devastating energy weapon that harnessed the power of their star's radiation, compressed into a single pulse that could obliterate even the toughest of enemy ships. It was a risky weapon, difficult to control, but it was enough to break the Drachner's will. For the first time, the reptilian warriors began to retreat, their once unshakable resolve shattering under the might of the human counteroffensive. And it was then that the Yithan made their move. Rather than waiting for the Drachner to retaliate, they launched an attack of their own, using their mastery over energy to send shockwaves throughout human territory. The Yithan believed that by striking at humanity's core, they could wipe them out once and for all. But again, they underestimated the one thing no one could predict about humanity, their sheer tenacity. The Yithan, though formidable in their abilities to manipulate matter and energy, had never faced an opponent like humanity. As the energy beams tore through human defenses, the humans responded not with desperation, but with calculated precision. They countered the Yithan's energy manipulations with newly developed technology that interfered with the Yithan's control over matter, a technological breakthrough that would have been unthinkable just a decade earlier. The Yithan were forced into retreat, leaving humanity's resolve stronger than ever. With both the Drachner and the Yithan suffering heavy losses, the Vortai saw their chance. They approached the humans, extending an olive branch, but one laced with the sharp edge of manipulation. They offered an alliance, claiming that only together could they defeat the other threats that lingered in the galaxy. But humanity was no fool. The Vortai had their own agenda, one that didn't involve any sort of true partnership. Rather than joining forces with the Vortai, humanity had something else in mind. They had begun to study the art of galactic politics, and the time had come to forge their own path. They would no longer be pawns in the games of the ancient species. The humans would play the game their own way, taking control of their destiny, and in doing so, they would become the true apex predators of the universe. The fires of war burned brighter than ever, but the humans were no longer fighting for survival. They were fighting for supremacy. The galaxy trembled as the humans, now battle-hardened and united by their victories, began to reshape the balance of power. No longer simply a species fighting for survival, humanity had become a force to be reckoned with. Their fleets, once a ragtag collection of hastily constructed ships, now gleamed with the precision of a purpose-driven military. Their weapons, forged in the heat of battle, had evolved into tools of mass destruction, and they were just beginning to unlock their true potential. It was during this time that the humans came across a discovery that would change everything: the remnants of an ancient weapon, one that predated the rise of even the oldest species in the galaxy. Hidden deep within a forsaken star system, beneath the shattered remains of a long-dead civilization, humanity found the apex core. It was a relic of a race long forgotten, capable of harnessing the energy of a dying star to create an unstoppable force. The core, once activated, could decimate entire fleets with a single pulse of energy, leaving nothing but cosmic dust in its wake. With this newfound power, the humans were faced with a choice: continue to defend their home and their colonies, or take the fight to the heart of their enemies, shattering the false sense of superiority the ancient species had long held. The decision was made, and humanity's war for supremacy began anew, this time with a weapon that could not be ignored. The first target was the Drachner. They had been the most persistent in their efforts to annihilate humanity, their repeated attacks on human colonies having sparked the most bitter of rivalries. Humanity, eager to prove that they were no longer to be underestimated, gathered their fleet in secret and prepared to strike at the heart of Drachner space. The Drachner had never been faced with a weapon like the Apex Core, and they underestimated the humans' resolve once more. The battle that followed was unlike any the Drachner had ever seen. The humans, under the command of Admiral Helena Voss, launched a devastating offensive, using their newly acquired weapon to obliterate Drachner fleets with ease. The Drachner, once the undisputed kings of war, were forced to retreat, leaving their colonies in chaos. For the first time, the galaxy's dominant species had tasted defeat at the hands of a younger, seemingly insignificant race. But as the humans reveled in their victory, they knew the war was far from over. The Drachner were merely one of many threats, and the Yithan were still watching from the shadows. The ethereal beings had not forgotten their humiliating defeat at humanity's hands, and their mastery over energy had made them a constant threat. The Yithan, recognizing the humans as a force too dangerous to ignore, began to regroup and plan their next move. In the meantime, the Vortai, having bided their time and watched the destruction of the Drachner, realized the opportunity that now lay before them. They were not content to simply watch humanity's rise, they intended to join it, to control it. The Vortai sought an alliance with the humans, offering their formidable strength and advanced technology in exchange for a share in the spoils of war. But humanity had learned the lessons of the past. They knew the Vortai would betray them at the first opportunity. The humans were not about to become pawns in another species' scheme. Instead of accepting the Vortai's offer, humanity turned the tables, using their newfound influence to play the Vortai against the Yithan. It was a delicate political maneuver, one that required patience and cunning, but the humans were learning the ways of power with incredible speed. By carefully manipulating the Vortai and the Yithan, humanity managed to create a three-way stalemate, weakening all sides while further solidifying their own position as the galaxy's emerging power. As the war raged on, the humans continued to evolve. They began to adapt the technology of their enemies, incorporating the energy manipulation techniques of the Yithan and the brute force strategies of the Vortai into their own. They developed new, more efficient weapons, created better armor, and perfected their fleet tactics. Every defeat made them stronger, every victory brought new opportunities for growth. And with every passing day, the humans' thirst for dominance grew insatiable. The galaxy had underestimated humanity from the very beginning. What they had failed to account for was humanity's ability to adapt to any situation, to learn from every setback, and to come back stronger than before. It wasn't just the humans' ability to fight that made them dangerous, it was their relentless drive to evolve and perfect every aspect of warfare and strategy. As they turned their attention toward the next phase of their conquest, taking the war to the Yithan and forcing the Vortai into submission, the message to the galaxy was clear. Humanity was no longer a young, untested species. They were a force of nature, and they would stop at nothing to become the true apex predators of the universe. As humanity's influence spread across the galaxy, the ancient powers of the Drachner, Yithan, and Vortai found themselves in disarray. Their once unified dominion over the stars was unraveling, not due to their own shortcomings, but because of the relentless ascent of humanity. The galaxy had been used to the status quo, to the way things had always been. Now, that order was in jeopardy. The first true test of humanity's rising power came when they turned their sights on the Yithin, who had become increasingly erratic and hostile in the wake of their earlier defeat. The ethereal beings, masters of energy manipulation and reality-bending technologies, believed themselves to be the highest form of existence. To them, humanity was an annoyance, a race that would eventually burn out, as all the others had before. But the Yithin had made the same mistake again. They underestimated the human spirit. A coalition of human fleets, led by the brilliant Admiral Marcus Greaves, infiltrated Yithin-controlled space, striking at the very heart of their energy-construct cities. The Yithin, confident in their ability to reshape matter and energy to their will, didn't think the humans stood a chance. But humanity had adapted to their manipulation techniques, developing new energy-dampening fields and devices that rendered the Yithin's most powerful abilities useless. When the first blast from humanity's graviton cannons tore through a Yithin city, the galaxy's ancient rulers were stunned. The Yithin had never imagined that their carefully constructed domains could be shattered so easily. The attack was swift and brutal, and the Yithin, faced with the unrelenting human advance, found themselves scrambling to defend their territory. But the true brilliance of humanity's assault lay in their strategy. Rather than simply attacking, they struck at the very foundation of the Yithin's psyche. The Yithin had always relied on their ability to manipulate energy and matter, bending the laws of the universe to suit their needs. The humans, however, did not simply fight in the traditional sense. They attacked the Yithin's belief in their own invulnerability. They created a campaign of disinformation, tricking the Yithin into thinking they were being attacked from multiple fronts, breaking their morale from within. With their faith in their superiority shattered, the Yithin began to fracture. In a matter of weeks, the once mighty Yithin Empire crumbled under the weight of humanity's relentless assault. Their once untouchable cities fell, their fleets shattered, and their ancient leaders, once thought invincible, were forced into retreat. Humanity had turned the tables in a way no one could have predicted. The Yithin, now fractured and in disarray, were no longer the dominant power they once were. For the first time in millennia, the galaxy was without a clear ruler, and humanity was there, ready to claim the throne. But the victory over the Yithin was not without its consequences. The Vortai, watching from the sidelines, realized that humanity had become the galaxy's new power. Their massive, towering forms loomed over the remaining species, and their brutal, no-nonsense approach to warfare made them a constant threat. The Vortai were no longer content to watch. They would act, and they would act quickly. In a desperate bid to regain some semblance of control, the Vortai launched a surprise attack on human colonies along the Outer Rim. The Vortai believed that humanity's military might have been overstretched by the Yithin War, and that this would be the perfect opportunity to strike. But once again, the Vortai misjudged their enemy. The humans, now in control of the strategic resources of the galaxy, turned the Vortai's own tactics against them. They had studied the Vortai's methods for months, understanding their tactics and culture, learning how they fought. The humans adapted quickly, using guerrilla warfare and deception to overwhelm the Vortai forces. Instead of fighting in open battlefields, they struck from the shadows, using sabotage and ambushes to decimate Vortai supply lines and cripple their war machines. The Vortai, while strong and brutal, lacked the flexibility and cunning that the humans had honed in their rise. Their forceful attacks faltered in the face of the humans' ever-evolving strategies, and one by one, the Vortai strongholds fell. It was a fight that didn't just test strength, but willpower and adaptability, and the humans had the edge. The victory was staggering. The Vortai, unable to continue their aggressive campaign, were forced into a ceasefire. They had been humbled by a species they had once deemed too weak to threaten them. But the Vortai were not done yet. They retreated to their homeworlds, licking their wounds, but with plans to rebuild. Now, with the Yithin in disarray and the Vortai defeated, humanity stood at the precipice of galactic supremacy. But the question remained, would they be content to rule in the shadows, or would they ascend to their rightful place as the apex predators of the universe? The galaxy's ancient powers had been shattered, but new challenges loomed on the horizon. Other species, too, had taken note of humanity's rise. And as the dust settled, the remaining forces of the galaxy began to regroup, preparing for the inevitable struggle for control of the stars. Humanity's war for supremacy was far from over. Humanity stood victorious in the wake of the Yithan and Vortai collapses. The once mighty galactic powers had been humbled, their forces scattered and their territories crippled. The stars, which had long belonged to ancient civilizations, now shimmered with the potential of a new order. The question no longer seemed to be if humanity would dominate the galaxy, but how they would reshape it in their own image. The first step was unification. With their victory over the Yithan and the Vortai, humanity had shown that it was capable of great things, but unity would be the foundation of their lasting power. The Galactic Council, an unprecedented assembly of leaders from human colonies, came together to draft the framework for what would be known as the Human Dominion. This new order was to be a system of equal representation, but one that would place humanity at its heart. There were whispers from other species, some of them once rulers of vast empires, but humanity was firm in its vision. No longer would the galaxy bend to the whims of ancient powers. The Human Dominion would ensure peace, by force if necessary, and a new era of prosperity. To ensure that humanity's dominance was absolute, a new breed of soldiers emerged, the Apex Legion. These were no ordinary soldiers. They were genetically enhanced, rigorously trained in every form of combat, and capable of surviving in the harshest environments of the galaxy. The Apex Legion was humanity's response to the thousands of years of tyranny from ancient species. They were not simply warriors, they were symbols of human resolve, capable of doing whatever it took to safeguard humanity's future. As the Apex Legion began to secure human-controlled territories and patrol the outer reaches of the galaxy, the remaining species looked on with a mixture of fear and begrudging respect. Humanity had not only survived against insurmountable odds, but they had conquered. And now, they were preparing to expand their influence even further. But with power came enemies. The remnants of the Yithan Empire, though scattered, were not yet defeated. Their ethereal energies had retreated to the fringes of the galaxy, regrouping in hidden pockets of space. Though they no longer had their former physical form, the Yithan had retained their knowledge of energy manipulation and could still strike when least expected. They were fractured, but not broken. They would bide their time and wait for the perfect moment to rise again. Likewise, a loose alliance of smaller species, those who had once been subjugated by the Drachner and Vortai, began to form. They were determined to ensure that humanity did not become the new tyrant of the galaxy. Though these smaller factions had little chance against the might of the Apex Legion, they could still present a challenge. Their leaders began to meet in secret, devising plans to undermine humanity's rule. On the other side of the galaxy, however, a far more dangerous threat was quietly emerging. A species that had been a myth to many, the Krokanar, an ancient race of energy-consuming predators that fed on the very life force of stars, were awakening from their long slumber. Once thought extinct, they had been hidden away in the dark corners of the universe, awaiting the right moment to emerge. With the collapse of the Drachner and Yithan, the Krokanar saw the perfect opportunity to reclaim the galaxy for themselves. Their hunger for power, and for the very stars that had once nourished them, could not be sated. Humanity, still basking in the glow of its recent victories, had no idea that this new threat was lurking just beyond their reach. Their efforts to consolidate power and rebuild their economy had distracted them from the shadows, where a storm was quietly brewing. The Krokanar, creatures of overwhelming strength and boundless hunger, were preparing to launch their assault on the galaxy. And they would not be stopped by the Apex Legion, no matter how strong or numerous. In the heart of the Human Dominion, Admiral Helena Voss, the leader who had helped orchestrate humanity's first victories, received unsettling reports from her scouts. Strange anomalies were being detected near the borders of human space. Energy signatures that couldn't be explained by known species or technology. Faint, unsettling disturbances in the fabric of spacetime. The Krokanar were approaching, and humanity's most dangerous enemy had awoken from its deep, starless slumber. The leadership of humanity now faced a choice: continue to strengthen their rule, stamping out any opposition, or face the most devastating threat the galaxy had ever known. To make matters worse, the human species was divided. While many called for immediate action and the formation of a grand coalition to combat this new predator, there were others who believed in expanding humanity's reach, cementing their position as the undeniable rulers of the stars before confronting the unknown. As the days ticked by, tensions within the council reached a boiling point. The human dominion was on the cusp of greatness, but the galaxy's most ancient predator was lurking just beyond the stars. And humanity's fate would depend not just on its military might, but on its ability to decide what kind of empire it would become. Would they become the protectors of the galaxy, or would they fall to the same hunger that had consumed so many before them? Humanity stood victorious in the wake of the Yithan and Vortai collapses. The once mighty galactic powers had been humbled, their forces scattered and their territories crippled. The stars, which had long belonged to ancient civilizations, now shimmered with the potential of a new order. The question no longer seemed to be if humanity would dominate the galaxy, but how they would reshape it in their own image. The first step was unification. With their victory over the Yithan and the Vortai, humanity had shown that it was capable of great things, but unity would be the foundation of their lasting power. The Galactic Council, an unprecedented assembly of leaders from human colonies, came together to draft the framework for what would be known as the Human Dominion. This new order was to be a system of equal representation, but one that would place humanity at its heart. There were whispers from other species, some of them once rulers of vast empires, but humanity was firm in its vision. No longer would the galaxy bend to the whims of ancient powers. The human dominion would ensure peace, by force if necessary, and a new era of prosperity. To ensure that humanity's dominance was absolute, a new breed of soldiers emerged, the Apex Legion. These were no ordinary soldiers. They were genetically enhanced, rigorously trained in every form of combat, and capable of surviving in the harshest environments of the galaxy. The Apex Legion was humanity's response to the thousands of years of tyranny from ancient species. They were not simply warriors, they were symbols of human resolve, capable of doing whatever it took to safeguard humanity's future. As the Apex Legion began to secure human-controlled territories and patrol the outer reaches of the galaxy, the remaining species looked on with a mixture of fear and begrudging respect. Humanity had not only survived against insurmountable odds, but they had conquered. And now, they were preparing to expand their influence even further. But with power came enemies. The remnants of the Yithan Empire, though scattered, were not yet defeated. Their ethereal energies had retreated to the fringes of the galaxy, regrouping in hidden pockets of space. Though they no longer had their former physical form, the Yithan had retained their knowledge of energy manipulation and could still strike when least expected. They were fractured, but not broken. They would bide their time and wait for the perfect moment to rise again. Likewise, a loose alliance of smaller species, those who had once been subjugated by the Drachner and Vortai, began to form. They were determined to ensure that humanity did not become the new tyrant of the galaxy. Though these smaller factions had little chance against the might of the Apex Legion, they could still present a challenge. Their leaders began to meet in secret, devising plans to undermine humanity's rule. On the other side of the galaxy, however, a far more dangerous threat was quietly emerging. A species that had been a myth to many, the Krokanar, an ancient race of energy-consuming predators that fed on the very life force of stars, were awakening from their long slumber. Once thought extinct, they had been hidden away in the dark corners of the universe, awaiting the right moment to emerge. With the collapse of the Drachner and Yithan, the Krokanar saw the perfect opportunity to reclaim the galaxy for themselves. Their hunger for power, and for the very stars that had once nourished them, could not be sated. Humanity, still basking in the glow of its recent victories, had no idea that this new threat was lurking just beyond their reach. Their efforts to consolidate power and rebuild their economy had distracted them from the shadows, where a storm was quietly brewing. The Krokanar, creatures of overwhelming strength and boundless hunger, were preparing to launch their assault on the galaxy. And they would not be stopped by the Apex Legion, no matter how strong or numerous. In the heart of the human dominion, Admiral Helena Voss, the leader who had helped orchestrate humanity's first victories, received unsettling reports from her scouts. Strange anomalies were being detected near the borders of human space. Energy signatures that couldn't be explained by known species or technology. Faint, unsettling disturbances in the fabric of spacetime. The Crocanair were approaching, and humanity's most dangerous enemy had awoken from its deep, starless slumber. The leadership of humanity now faced a choice: continue to strengthen their rule, stamping out any opposition, or face the most devastating threat the galaxy had ever known. To make matters worse, the human species was divided. While many called for immediate action and the formation of a grand coalition to combat this new predator, there were others who believed in expanding humanity's reach, cementing their position as the undeniable rulers of the stars before confronting the unknown. As the days ticked by, tensions within the council reached a boiling point. The human dominion was on the cusp of greatness, but the galaxy's most ancient predator was lurking just beyond the stars. And humanity's fate would depend not just on its military might, but on its ability to decide what kind of empire it would become. Would they become the protectors of the galaxy, or would they fall to the same hunger that had consumed so many before them? The silence after the battle was deafening. The Crocanair, that ancient and malevolent force, had been vanquished, their power shattered in a violent cascade of energy as the singularity reversal matrix had done its work. The galaxy, at least in this moment, was safe. Humanity had pulled off the impossible, standing at the precipice of annihilation and emerging victorious. But this victory, while monumental, had come at a price far greater than anyone had anticipated. Admiral Helena Voss stood alone on the bridge of victory's edge, staring out at the shattered remnants of the battlefield. The stars, once a bright beacon of hope and promise, now seemed distant, cold, and uncertain. The singularity reversal matrix had collapsed the Crocanair's very essence, consuming them in a cataclysmic implosion. The shockwave had sent ripples through the nearby star systems, causing massive collapses. Some systems had been obliterated entirely. The cost of victory was written in the ruins of 100 worlds. Admiral, the survivors are accounted for. The damage, it's more extensive than we imagined, came the voice of Lieutenant Jonas through the comm. His tone was heavy with both relief and grief. There was no celebration in their victory, not yet. They had saved the galaxy, but the galaxy had paid a terrible price. Voss's gaze never wavered as she considered the vast emptiness ahead of them. The Apex Legion had been reduced to a fraction of its former strength, and the remaining fleets were in disarray. But they were alive. Humanity was alive. And that was something the universe had never expected. Even the mighty Crocanair had underestimated the resilience of a species that had always refused to yield. "We'll rebuild, Jonas," she said firmly, her voice cold but resolute. "We will rebuild. But first, we must prepare for what comes next. We can't allow the galaxy to fall into chaos. The human dominion will rise from these ashes." In the aftermath of the battle, the galaxy's political landscape was in turmoil. While the Crocanair had been defeated, the shockwave they had unleashed had destabilized countless star systems. Power vacuums appeared where empires had once stood, and many of the smaller species, weakened by centuries of domination, found themselves caught between the collapsing remnants of old powers and the rising might of humanity. The human dominion now stood as the only force with the strength and resources to impose order. But there were still factions within and outside of humanity that sought to challenge this new dominance. Humanity's council met in an emergency session, led by Voss herself. Representatives from the remaining colonies gathered, each vying for influence in the new order. Some argued that the time had come to expand, to conquer the broken galaxy and impose humanity's will on the remnants of the old powers. Others, still reeling from the devastating losses, called for restraint, insisting that the galaxy needed healing, not further conflict. The debate raged on, but Voss remained steadfast. She had seen the cost of empire building firsthand. To rise to the top of the galaxy only to rule through fear was a hollow victory. Humanity had earned its place as the dominant species, but it could not afford to let that power corrupt them. The lessons of the past, of the civilizations that had risen and fallen before them, were clear. The human dominion is not about domination for domination's sake, Voss addressed the council. We are the inheritors of the galaxy's future, but our responsibility is not to destroy what remains. We have fought to survive, to defend this galaxy from the forces that would tear it apart. Now, we must show the universe that we are capable of creating something better. We will rebuild, and we will lead by example. The Council, though divided, found a tenuous agreement. The human dominion would be the cornerstone of the new galaxy, but it would not rule through oppression. Instead, it would forge alliances with the surviving species, offering them protection and cooperation in exchange for their loyalty. For the first time in history, humanity's vision was not one of ruthless conquest, but of stability and mutual respect. But even as the Council deliberated, a shadow loomed on the horizon. Far from the galactic core, in the uncharted depths of space, something was stirring. The Crocanair were not the only ancient predators of the galaxy. There were other forces, older and more insidious, watching the rise of humanity from the edges of the known universe. As humanity celebrated their victory, the galaxy remained a vast and dangerous place. The victory over the Crocanair had solidified humanity's place at the top, but it had also opened a door to even greater challenges. The universe had begun to take notice. And now, the question was not whether humanity could survive, it was whether they could continue to protect and lead the galaxy, or whether they would fall to the same fate as those who had come before them. For the first time in its history, humanity was the apex predator of the universe. But with that power came the weight of responsibility. The human dominion would have to navigate the fragile peace they had won, all while standing guard against the unknown threats that awaited them. The battle for the galaxy had been won, but the war, the true war, was just beginning.